Joining us to talk about these and other issues, Republican Congressman Eric Paulsen. Thank you so much for coming in.
Great to be here.
All right, a lot to talk about this morning. Let me ask you, first of all, about this Cassidy Graham-Heller proposal to repeal and replace Obamacare. Are you for it?
Well, it's changing literally hour by hour, day by day, so the House doesn't even have any of the detailed information. So we'll have to wait and see what the Senate does. The House took action on health care, boy, it must have been back in May, right? And so the Senate failed to pass something, even a skinny bill in late July, and now they're trying to resurrect that. So we'll just see what happens. Okay. There are some other bipartisan pieces that I think have the opportunity to move forward out of the Senate as well.
Because the state of Minnesota is estimating that it would cut federal funding by 2030 of $37 billion from Minnesota. I mean, do you agree with that? And is this a bill that you can support in its current form? I realize it's changing.
Yeah, and again, I don't know the details of what's in the bill because it hasn't been scored officially. In fact, some outside groups have scored it, but they haven't taken into account the next 10 years of funding either. So I think there's just some mismanagement of the numbers that are floating around. And we'll look at anything that comes forward just to see if it's the right thing to help people that have been under the strain of the Continuing Affordable Care Act.
Okay, because you did vote back in May for what was called Trump Care. Is this better or worse, do you think?
Well, it's better to help people, obviously, get relief under the current Affordable Care Act so they don't have skyrocketing premiums, lose their doctor. That's the focus that needs to be addressed, and giving states more flexibility.
All right, well, let me ask you, because you did weigh in on this issue of a waiver. This is a complicated issue. The Trump administration appeared to give Minnesota assurances that they would get a waiver for the reinsurance plan that would help reduce premiums. Also, the Trump administration proposing massive cuts to MinCare, which provides health care for the poor. You were appalled you said you were appalled at the president's and the administration's action. What are you doing to try and get that waiver?
Well, I've been working with HHS and the secretary for a long period of time, and when the governor sent his letter last week saying there could be other additional impacts on the existing Minnesota Care program, it was a shock. And so we followed up on that as well. And we did learn that there's actually been in negotiations for about a month on that to resolve that situation. The good news is the waiver's been granted. The governor will likely accept it. That'll help the state. And if premiums come down, it'll have a different effect on those other components that the governor raised concerns on, and I did as well. So we'll have to get more information on that for our local legislators, too.
Okay. The president unveiling his tax reform proposal. You've actually been heavily involved in this. What are the details? Because we'd all like to know.
You know, this is an important week. The framework is going to get revealed and laid out to the public. We're going to be filling in a lot of those details this week and next week. It's so critical for our economy. You know, look, the economic recovery since the Great Recession has not served a lot of Minnesotans well, or a lot of Americans for that matter. Young people are at risk of going backwards if we don't have a competitive economy, and baby boomers and seniors in those generations are going to have difficulty with undermined programs of Social Security and Medicare if we don't have a competitive growing economy. So for me, this is about restoring a prosperous future with lower rates, consolidated brackets, more simplicity, having a competitive economy, which is going to make sure that our next generations are able to compete and get jobs and pay student loans and have opportunity.
All right, a lot of critics have been concerned that this tax reform bill will actually provide the biggest benefit to people like President Trump, the wealthiest 1%. Will any cuts to the wealthiest be offset by reduced deductions?
Yeah, our focus right now is helping middle-class income Americans. There's no doubt about it. And so these are small business owners, these are Main Street folks. So it's also making ourselves competitive for American workers, business, et cetera. But this is focused on the middle class. That's the area we're going.
All right. In the past 6 months since the election, you really have been plagued by protests outside your offices, at certain appearances. You've been criticized on social media for not having in-person town hall meetings. How do you respond to that? There are even a few protesters outside this morning here.
Yeah, there are a lot of protesters, and I've met with all of them. So I have regular office hours. We did that again this week. So the most important thing is being accessible and listening, even to people that don't agree with, right? And so we've had office hours several weeks where people just come in, they sit down. We've had open venues, telephone town hall meetings, Congress on Your Corner events. Those events continue, and so I use a whole host of variety measures to communicate with my constituents on a regular basis.
You know, I did see on your Facebook that Congress on Your Corner, I think it was up in the northern part of your district just this past week, but some of the critics were saying on your Facebook that you didn't have any notice of that. Is that true?
Well, we send mailings to the local community. So again, these are the same critics that, the same 50 people that are out protesting that I've already met with that say the same thing over and over. So no difference there.
Okay.